I believe Bitcoin has more transformative effects outside of just being sound money. It changes people as well in general. So it makes you better people, and governments are made of people. So hopefully we can get better politicians, better regulators, better everything. Their job is to nail nails into walls, and that is what they're going to do, and they can't do anything else. So they're going to tell you that nailing nails into the wall is very important and stabilizes the economy. But at the end of the day, people know, people understand, because there's a lot of countries out there right now that have a lot of debt, and the debt is denominated in dollars. And the only way for them to get out of that debt, that dollar-denominated debt, is to invest in other things that are harder, like Bitcoin. And then you effectively can get out. Otherwise, you're just crushed with the interest payments, refinancing, and there's no way for you to get out of this IMF chokehold. So Bitcoin is the only way for these countries to get free, effectively. Money is just simply information now, and I don't believe a lot of governments have prepared themselves for this transformation.
Samson Mow begins by asserting that Bitcoin is more than just a tool for financial sovereignty. It's a force for personal and societal transformation. He argues that Bitcoin has the potential to make people better by instilling a sense of responsibility, transparency, and long-term thinking. This transformation extends to governments, which are, after all, made up of people. As more individuals, including politicians and regulators, become orange-pilled or convinced of Bitcoin's benefits, there is potential for a shift towards more enlightened governance. Mow also addresses the global debt crisis, particularly in developing countries burdened by dollar-denominated debt. He argues that for many of these nations, Bitcoin offers a viable path to financial independence. By investing in Bitcoin or using it as collateral for sovereign debt, these countries can escape the stranglehold of interest payments and refinancing traps set by institutions like the IMF. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
I believe Bitcoin has more transformative effects outside of just being sound money. It changes people as well in general. So it makes you better people, and governments are made of people. So hopefully we can get better politicians, better regulators, better everything. And I believe that's also part of how we win. So we're working, engaging, and trying to orange pill the governments and the politicians and the presidents, etc. I think we're slowly going to get there, and it's going to be a challenging path because governments are not quickly moving agile entities. They're very slow, but I believe that some people do see the benefit of Bitcoin, and we just have to keep pressing on those points and trying to make them see the light, see the orange light. Important for us, I think, to advocate for more Bitcoin mining at the nation-state level, because that mitigates the attack on Bitcoin in some ways. So we try to educate the governments and explain to them what Bitcoin is. But the best way for them to understand what Bitcoin is simply to experience it, transact it, to get some Bitcoin over Lightning, and then you see how powerful this thing is. Because when you understand it, then you are less privy to making bad policy or misunderstanding the nature of Bitcoin. So you understand that Bitcoin is simply information, and you can't really ban information. And then you'll be less inclined to do a lot of the bad policy making in the EU, like trying to ban self-hosted or self-custodial wallets, because you understand that you can't do that. And it's the same with mining. Mining, you could see governments cracking down or trying to enforce the miners to KYC their miners, or filter transactions or block transactions. But if they're actually mining, then they should understand through that process that they can try to do things like attack the network through mining, but it probably won't have any effect. Or you can try to ban mining, and it also won't have an effect too. Similar to China, they crack down on mining, and there was a mass exodus. But who was harmed at the end of the day? It was the Chinese miners that were harmed, not the rest of the network. The rest of the network benefited greatly from that because suddenly difficulty dropped, and everyone is making much more money. So if a government is mining, they'll experience that, and then they'll learn that lesson implicitly that I should not ban mining, and if someone does do that, I will benefit. So the best way to learn is really to experience it. That's their livelihood, right? If you're a central banker, you need to tell people that you're valuable and you do something other than printing money, which you don't, and that you provide a valuable service, right? It's like their job is to nail nails into walls, and that is what they're going to do, and they can't do anything else. So they're going to tell you that nailing nails into the wall is very important and stabilizes the economy. But at the end of the day, people know, people understand, and I think there is a very strong grassroots movement of Bitcoin adoption in Europe, and it's kind of not as strong elsewhere in the world. But in Europe, the people, the plebs, the ordinary Bitcoiners, they know what's wrong with the economy. They know what's wrong with the money. So they're going to run the nodes. They're going to stack sats, and eventually they will affect change. And the ways that we affect change are to find ways to engage. So in Germany, we're working with Bitcoin in Bundestag. That's an initiative put on to bring Bitcoiners into the German parliament to educate them on what Bitcoin is and what benefits Bitcoin can bring. And these kind of initiatives are very powerful because it's a direct way for us to interface with the powers that be. But anybody can start nation-state adoption on some level, because there's a lot of countries out there right now that have a lot of debt, and the debt is denominated in dollars. And the only way for them to get out of that debt, that dollar-denominated debt, is to invest in other things that are harder, like Bitcoin. And then you effectively can get out. Otherwise, you're just crushed with the interest payments, refinancing, and there's no way for you to get out of this IMF chokehold. So Bitcoin is the only way for these countries to get free, effectively. So I think the forward thinkers will look towards this type of instrument. Or they can just buy Bitcoin too. But the problem is a lot of countries don't have the reserves to buy Bitcoin, so they can take debt denominated in dollars but backed with Bitcoin. And it's sovereign debt too. So if there's any good debt, it's probably sovereign. So that's probably the best path forward for them. I'm hopeful that we can get something going in Argentina too, because they have a lot of debt to crawl out from under.
Bitcoin amplifies this trend by existing as pure information, accessible anywhere with an internet connection. Mow argues that governments need to adapt to this new reality or risk becoming increasingly authoritarian in their attempts to control money. He cites the example of Canada, where the government froze citizens' bank accounts during the trucker protests, as a warning of what could happen if states fail to respect the changing dynamics of money and individual freedoms. Mow believes that nation-state adoption of Bitcoin is crucial for several reasons. Firstly, it forces governments to rethink their approach to money, regulation, and individual rights. By adopting Bitcoin, states are compelled to recognize it as a legitimate form of money and integrate it into their financial systems.
But the other part is that money is just simply information now, and I don't believe a lot of governments have prepared themselves for this transformation. Technically, they should have started to understand this because money has largely become borderless. So when you're traveling, you're supposed to declare how much money you have when you quote-unquote cross a border, but you have your money in your bank account. Even though it's centralized, you can still access it from, let's say, for example, Madeira. I can go to the ATM and withdraw cash.
You can, but what about the people that are here from like Venezuela?
We'll get there. But let's deal with the taxation part first and treatment of money. So you can also spend from your credit card, and that is also moving money across borders. So the transition of money being information has already been in progress for some time, but I don't think a lot of the governments and agencies are mentally equipped to deal with that change, right? Technically, when you cross, you should declare how much credit card limit you have. But of course, Bitcoin blows all of this out of the water. Now, Bitcoin simply exists, and if you have your keys, you can access it. So I believe the relationship between the state and the citizen has to change dramatically, because if it doesn't, then you can see a massive overreach. And we have seen this as an example, well, going back to Canada, God bless Canada, but they can already freeze your funds like they did by declaring the Emergencies Act. But that was a very one-off exercising of, how should we call it, weakness of a prime minister. So it's not that common, but just crossing a border with Bitcoin, I think, that is more common. Like, everyone is traveling these days, and we're always crossing borders. But the legislation has not yet caught up to the new reality of what money is, that it's just information. So I think something has to change there. Otherwise, that couldn't be weaponized to attack political opponents, dissidents, ordinary people that somehow the government deems you to be
It's being used.
It is being used as a weapon. They have to start to understand that. And I think this is why nation-state adoption is important. Because if they understand that, then they have to effectively deregulate money. And they have to just treat money as something that can freely flow. And I don't know if that will happen first in Europe or other places, but it's more likely that it will happen in other places, because the incentives in Europe still are to protect the old system, which doesn't really function anymore. But they're still going to protect it until it doesn't work anymore. But that could be very soon, because it's all coming apart as we sit here. And Bitcoin, of course, is gaining more and more dominance. So I'm hoping the European Central Bank releases more FUD, because their last piece sent us up on a nice bull run. But we have to engage them. I don't think if we just sit back, they'll figure it out on their own. It's going to be us talking to them and trying to make things better. But a part of that making things better is also fixing or optimizing prior legislation. There's a lot of conflicting legislation, and things don't really make sense because, again, if you're a lawmaker, you're paid to make laws. That's your job. Just like if you're a central banker, you're paid to print money. And we don't have yet the concept of a law optimizer or law remover. So the law just gets more and more convoluted and complex, where the weaponization of that law is a real danger. And that is probably the biggest threat to people's liberties than anything else at this time. The fact that the governments can just arbitrarily select some laws and just throw you in the gulag.
Nation-state adoption can lead to the deregulation of money, allowing it to flow more freely and without the constraints imposed by traditional financial systems. This could have profound implications for global trade, economic stability, and the balance of power between states and citizens. Mow is optimistic that nation-state adoption will happen, though he predicts it is more likely to occur first in regions outside of Europe, where the incentives to protect the old system are stronger. He sees potential in countries that are already feeling the strain of economic collapse, as they may be more willing to embrace Bitcoin as a solution. Please like and subscribe my channel.